There is some serious smoke around this right now as St. Louis is off to a pretty rough start to the season. New reports have come out of there indicating that Jordan Kyrou's future is more uncertain than ever. Even Elliot Friedman weighed in, and there are even some links to the Montreal Canadiens. We have to dive into Jordan Kyrou and how Montreal could take advantage of this situation, but not just that. We have some new quotes regarding Ivan Demidov from Coach Marty St. Louis and just how big his impact has been. And TSN has done some of their early award voting, and the Habs are very well featured. All that coming up in this episode of Habs Digest. But hey, you know what? You're watching this on a game day on Saturday. Leave a like if you want the Habs to win later today. We want to see at least 700 likes. Let's hype our boys up. And you know what better way to hype Jesse than to talk about some awards? As TSN, this article linked below, has done some of their early season polling with some of their writers. And I want to start by just saying Matheson also was named a finalist in this for the Norris, which is pretty cool. But the big thing here, Nick Suzuki leads their entire poll for Selke Trophy voting. It has become somewhat of an informal tradition in the NHL Awards Watch to have roughly the population of Saskatoon nominated for the Selke in the first month. Okay, slightly hyperbolic, but no less than 10 different players received at least one first place vote, and it's traditionally a hard thing to really vote for, Jesse, because again, it's a lot of the time you gotta be good offensively and defensively, but what better player exemplifies that than Nick Suzuki this year, especially with the usual favorite Barkov out and injured. I really like that we're actually seeing a lot of credit finally given to that defensive game that has always been a great part of Suzuki's 200-foot play.
I can't tell you how happy I am to see Nick Suzuki getting the respect that he deserves, albeit early on in the season. We're going to see that continue. The narrative is changing around Nick Suzuki, coincidentally around the Montreal Canadiens as well, again, proving the great leader that he is for this team as well. And again, getting 24% of those first place votes. Why was he able to do that, Josh? Again, 18 points in 12 games. That's the offensive side. The defensive side is allowing only 1.08 goals against per 60 with Nick Suzuki on the ice. Like, that's winning hockey. That's why he's in the Selke race here with Barkov off. You have to feel like this is absolutely his chance to get it here as well. Shout out to Matheson getting a first place vote early on the season for the Norse, but also Dobeš.
Yep.
Unreal, but he's in the Vezina conversation in this article as well with the best in the league. I mean, his numbers show that. And as well, Demi, as we know, in the Calder talks, leading all NHL rookies right now in scoring, 1 point above Matthew Schaefer. But the one thing about Nick Suzuki, again, because we're shining the light on Nick Suzuki, we know he needs to get his here. It's like, again, you can make the argument that he's been the best player in the world since the Four Nations, since Nick Suzuki decided to put his team on the back. Okay, we're going to get there. Not even getting there, but really kind of like afterwards as well. He's been, the points really show that he's been one of the very best players in the NHL. You show the point totals, but then what he's doing defensively. Yes, Dargo Armstrong, Nick Suzuki needs to make Team Canada. Yes, he deserves to get the Selke this year. Of course, he's going to be continuing that body of work to just solidify that throughout the year.
And you got to wonder, with this Blues talk, I mean, we're talking about a number of players. Braden Shannon last video, Jordan Kyrou today, Doug Armstrong, also Team Canada. I don't know about those Team Canada jerseys, though. Anyway, maybe you guys can leave your thoughts on that down below. But look, Nick Suzuki has been so good. You're so right, Jesse. Like, I didn't even think of that. The leader in points since the Four Nations, at least at one point. I think that's still true as of today. And still, to have that elite defensive game, that's a pretty darn good argument to me. Leave your thoughts on that down below. Love to see our boys well represented. But you mentioned Ivan Demidov. Of course, he was brought up there in that Rookie of the Year conversation. Him and Schaefer and so many other rookies. Hey, Kapanen's leading rookies in goal scoring too. A lot of these guys have been talked about. And there was an article from The Athletic that is linked down below that talked a lot about Demidov and how players around the world are really saying, wow, is he really that good? Like Trevor Zegras asked Cole Caufield after their game against Philly, like, man, that Ivan Demidov guy, like, is he really that good? Cole's like, yeah, he is. And there's so much more that we could get into there, but it was a quote from Marty that I really liked as well, Jesse, where Coach Marty said, I think he's very engaged in that sense, and to me, that's encouraging. To me, being engaged is way more important than actually having all the right details. He's going to get more detailed in that part of the game as he gets more experience in this game. And talking about the defense, that's the thing. Like, he has been incredibly engaged on the defensive end. We've seen that as even this super short sample. We're 9-3-2, 14 games. Ivan Demidov has looked better and better and better every single game. He still needs to work on taking some bad penalties, but every young player does. And even Marty said, look, when you have that high skill level, the game just comes easier to you. I've loved not only the play that Ivan Demidov's brought with his 12 points in 14 games, but the praise he's getting from his coach, his teammates, and even other people who have never even met the guy.
And again, like Trevor Zegras is just one example of many to Cole Caufield. He's saying like players around the league, like that's all they don't want to talk about Cole or his, like they want to hear like Ivan Demidov, like is he really that good? They're talking about these different parts of the game, like literally obsessed with him right now, what he's doing. Again, when you're getting buzz from other, kind of really talented players around the league, it just speaks to how fortunate that we were to have Ivan Demidov to fall to us where we are. We love having him on this team in just so many ways. Again, a big part of his success, why he's leading all rookies in scoring right now, again, amazing to see, is because he just processes the game like so incredibly, exceptionally quickly, which is unreal. He's always kind of seeing one step ahead. Again, really makes you feel like Hudson. I'm not just saying this because they're on the same team, but they really do process the game in the same type of way, that deceptiveness as well. Like we've just seen the tip of the iceberg of what Hudson and Ivan Demidov can do together. And in fact, I believe that they would have been good players if they were on separate teams. When you got guys like this, though, again, the work ethic, they're going to bring out, like, to get to their full potential. Like, Ivan Demidov could be really good, but when you surround him like players like this, the right situation, again, where he can grow with them over time. Like, Josh, I'm just excited to see as they kind of learn how to play with each other, because they're both guys that see the game at a next level, and often other players can't quite hang with like where they want to go and how they're seeing the game. So they're just, again, we're so fortunate as Habs fans to have players like this that just can work so incredibly well together. It's the skill, it's the exceptional vision, and really it just kind of compounds from there.
And it's the deception, right? Both these guys are so incredible at that, but they think in the same way. So like even Hudson was saying, like there was that play that we all saw where Demidov looked like he was about to shoot and then actually just passed to Suzuki and cut everyone out of position. He's done that twice this year. Hudson said, I knew he was looking for the pass. But that's the thing. Hudson thinks on the same wavelength. Like, these guys' chemistry is unbelievable, and it's going to be crazy to watch this for so many years to come. You can analyze every aspect of Ivan's game, but just the fact that he's getting the praise from every possible angle, from every player, from every coach, it's just incredible. I can't wait to see what's going to come next for him. Leave your thoughts on that down below. But the one thing is, though, the line right now is working pretty well with him, Alex Newhook, Oliver Kapanen. Look, they combined for another goal yesterday that I still think Demidov should have gotten an assist on, but that's behind us. Or that was 2 days ago now, sorry. But still, that line, there's a question mark, and there's a question mark down the middle for Montreal, because there were stretches that game against the Devils where their center depth versus Montreal's was pretty evident. And look, we still hung with them, got a point, that's great. But there's a lot of questions, again, about that 2C spot, and there's a certain name, or not even 2C necessarily, at least just on the wing or scoring. Now, this guy could play a little center. We've talked about that before. But Jordan Kyrou, he was healthy scratched a couple games ago for St. Louis, and this just got the gears spinning, right? And you also see, remember, like, the Habs were, if we remember, around the draft, Jesse, we were basically certain that this trade was going to go down. Like, I remember it like it was yesterday. Before the other stuff happened, the Bolduc trade, I was like, wait, that's the St. Louis trade? Because we were waiting to see if Kyrou was going to get traded before his no-movement clause kicked in. But Pagnotta even recalls, like, look, Kyrou was a player they talked about around the draft. Both the Islanders and Canadiens had talks. And Elliot Friedman on 32 Thoughts said Doug Armstrong is out there. I think he's trying to find out what the value of his guys and what he can do. A guy like Kyrou, he has trade protection, but $8.125 million isn't as big as it was even 4 months ago. I think that's very true. 8.125. Look, I'm not saying he's a perfect fit in Montreal, Jesse. In fact, I think, again, this carries a lot of risk. And I think the fact he even was healthy scratched by the Blues is a bit of a red flag in and of itself. But to me, there is a point where if the price isn't too high, you at least have to make some calls. I don't know if I'm crazy for saying that again. I'm not the biggest fan of, him not being a super physical player, but the goal scoring in the past few seasons speaks for itself, and I just wonder what he could do with some of our better, more skilled line mates there.
And even though there's like tons of potential with Kyrou, and even like actualized goal scoring, like this is a guy that can hit 30 goals in the NHL. If I'm Kent Hughes, like I'm just protecting like the culture of this locker room that you've so carefully cultivated, like above all else right now. And like, it's maybe if there wasn't like such a long deal, like he's in the third year of an 8-year deal, then I'm open to it, because it's like, okay, 1-2 years, kind of like with the Riley situation. It's like, even then, it's not the worst, and you got the stopgap coming up, but you're making a serious bet in your future, especially where we have committed to a lot of players long term. You have to feel like Kent Hughes took that under very, careful consideration before inking those long-term deals there. Again, hard to say, we don't want to judge a player without him being a part of our fold. That being said, there has been, some animosity at points between Kyrou and Blues fans and vice versa. Not saying that he always deserves it, but again, from our point, it is throwing up a little bit of red flags, even though there is the goal scoring there that would probably really solidify our top six. There's a lot of electricity. Like, he's a player that you watch and he can really take over a game. Like, he surprised me many times. And even though the point production's not terrible, maybe not exactly where you want it to be for his standards, 8 points in 14 games, for sure, this is, again, it's really compounded by the fact that the Blues haven't had the best start. They're really searching for answers right now. But you have to feel like if you're Kent Hughes, like, you've really built something, and it's like the players matter, but like it's funny how like the chemistry and the culture just like factors so importantly into all of these decisions if you're Kent Hughes.
Yeah, exactly. And you're very right. And it's something that the Habs have made very clear. Like, you just want winning hockey players. And there is the kind of looming question, like, is Kyrou going to be, like, look, obviously he's incredibly skilled, he's talented, and he can work on good teams. I'm not saying he can't be on a winning team, but is he the kind of guy that can drive a winning team with, like, his play on a line? Maybe, right? And again, you wonder, like, if he plays with a guy like Ivan Demidov there on that second line, and you put a center there with them, like, maybe Kaiden, maybe Dach, who knows? It could really work. I mean, they seem like the kind of players that could be dynamic and play in transition, but I really like what you said about this just being a bet. And in the third year of an 8-year deal, 8.1 million is not what it was even like a few months ago, especially with the cap going up. It's a big gamble, and that's not something Kent Hughes tends to do unless they have some kind of inside track where they really trust the player and the deal. So leave your thoughts on this down below. I think neither of us are super convinced that this is the right move long term, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on because Kent's looked at him before. That'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. Oh, I love this season of just wondering who's going to get moved. And if you like it too, leave a like, comment, subscribe down below. Thank you so much for tuning in every single day. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host Jesse Poirier. I'll catch you in the next one.